So, one of my biggest struggles with my neurodivergent type of brain is like the gateway to a conversation with people is oftentimes the phrase, "How are you doing?" or "What have you been doing lately?" And like whenever these questions are asked, I I am aware enough of like neurotypical behaviors to know what I'm supposed to say, kind of. But I cannot stop the process that happens when somebody says, "How are you doing?" I always feel like I become like this robot, and it's like that phrase happens and I'm like, okay, starting system evaluation, like, and I can't stop like checking all these things and like, okay, these are the physical pains, these are the things that are going on, this is the stuff in my life I'm really disappointed about. These are, and so all this stuff is going inside, and I know, even though all that stuff's going on inside, like I will be also thinking about, who is this person? What is the point of this question? Like, do I know them very well? Like, are they really genuinely asking? And then the other part of that is, even if they're genuinely asking, I don't want to tell anybody about this. Like, I've been learning boundaries and it's been hard work. And no, I don't want to talk about any of this crap. But then also, is this just a polite inquiry? And I know I'm supposed to just say, I'm fine. How are you? Right. But like, I resent that, because even if I just say, I'm fine, how are you? That question has started that like system evaluation of like taking stock of all the terrible things in my life and how I'm really not doing very well at all. and like, and so, and then I'm supposed to just say, like, you've made me super uncomfortable with this question, but I'm supposed to like stuff all that down and then like make a polite reply to make you feel comfortable. Like, I just resent it. And I know that people don't mean anything by it. And I know that it's just this stupid little, what do you call it? Like scripted thing we do, which makes it even stupider because like nobody means anything by it. So why are we saying it? Like, it's just like this strange little, like, what do you call it? Ritualistic thing we do, right? And then the other question being, like, not just how are you doing, that makes me evaluate everything in my life in a terrible way, but like, then the what have you been up to? And I've been up to a lot, and I do stuff that I think is really interesting, but I don't like to talk about it because a lot of people, even though they will try to be polite and stuff, like I can read it in their body language and everything. They're like, that's really weird, or that's unrelatable, because I do a lot of things like stop motion and disassembling computers and making puppets from the parts inside, and like some of the dance stuff I do, and like, those kind of things. I don't really want to talk about it, and I don't really, if there are any normal things that I've been up to, like normal meaning like more socially acceptable to talk about, they're usually like the worst and most dull parts of my life, or like emotionally weighty parts of my life that I don't want to talk about. And so it's like, where there's nothing to be relatable. And so I end up in this situation where I'm like having this whole mental internal breakdown of all of these thoughts, and it's like there's all this stuff trying to think through to just say something. And like, I think at one point in my life, I when I was working, and I would get to the point where, especially because you'd have like so many people, because I was in food service type stuff, and asking you that same stupid question all day long. And I finally just got to the point where I had this one answer. Like, they would be like, how are you? And I would be like, I'm here. And then sometimes if I was having a bad day, I would actually just say, like, they'd be like, how are you? And I'd be like, you know, I was doing a lot better before you asked me that. And then I had to like start thinking about like, how am I doing? And so, anyways, it's, I know that there's a lot of questions like that I struggle with in conversation, but it's so frustrating that it's like right at the beginning, like I can't even get into a conversation and maybe have some good like interaction without like trying to get past those. Like, by the time I've gotten to how are you and all that stuff and what have you been doing, I'm like burned out for talking to people, and I just want to go be by myself again.
It is strange that we ask those questions and makes no sense at all because people don't really want to know the answer to those questions. And the worst case scenario for me is when I run into somebody at the grocery store that I haven't seen in a while, because in that scenario, they're most definitely going to ask me how I'm doing. And when they do that, I too automatically start replaying my whole day in my head, and I start to think about the difficulty and struggle I had to make myself even drive to the grocery store. And on top of that, I'm now dealing with social anxiety because I ran into them and they're talking to me. And I'm doing this whole like internal process thing. And I do usually just respond with like good and you, but then they ask the follow-up question, which absolutely doesn't make any sense to me, which is, what have you been up to? Because I don't know what the socially acceptable response for that is supposed to be. I normally just try to keep it short and sweet and say, oh, me and my family have been up to this. But then I usually get strange looks when I respond like that from the other person, like I just overshared or something. And they'll usually respond with, well, it was good seeing you, and like walk off. So now I feel horrible because not only am I feeling the feelings I had to get myself to the grocery store and the social anxiety from running into this person, I now feel silly because I think I overshared or responded wrong. So I just don't know why we can't just say hi to people and that be enough and socially acceptable. And on top of that, now I have to do all my grocery shopping, which is overstimulating for me as well, feeling horrible.
I totally know what you mean with that, with the like um feeling like it's oversharing, but like it's funny to me because the way that it feels like to me is somebody comes up, asks you this hella intrusive question, and if you actually kind of answer it, then they look at you like you overshared, but you're like, you're the one who asked me. I didn't want to tell you this. So for me, I just feel like there should be more socially acceptable ways for people to get out of that kind of awkward situation. Like it should be socially acceptable to say something like, somebody's like, "How are you doing?" Just be like, "No, thank you." Or like, "Pass. How are you doing?" And I wish that there were more things like that that you could bypass those scripted things that's for those of us who are neurodivergent. And it doesn't matter like if I know what I'm supposed to say, it doesn't stop that whole process that goes on internally that I have to manage. And so like it's just if we could just skip those stupid parts and like actually like for me, my favorite thing is like when I talk to people is just like I always call it like I say me. Like I'll just tell you something interesting. It might be I might like randomly be like I don't know, whatever I'm like interested in at the time. There was a point in time where I'm sure everyone I knew was really sick of hearing about the the bird that built a nest above my window, but that was the most like interesting socially acceptable thing that was going on in my life that I felt like okay, it's just a bird. It's not a weird hobby. It's just an interesting wildlife, right? So I would tell people about that more and like just something that's like a random thing. Like I would be so much more inclined to have like a social interaction with somebody if they just were walked up to me and were like, "Hi, hey, lately we've been doing, I don't know, what do normal people do? Like CrossFit or something, and it's been great." And I'd be like, "Really? That's cool." And I can totally jump on a topic and tell you what I have that relates to your topic. Like, I don't do CrossFit, but I've been doing some martial arts stuff and blah, 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 blah. And so, like, it's just like, but people, you can't get through the gate of this social awkwardness, like of all of these things we're supposed to do to actually connect with people. And I think neurotypical people, I think, are struggling with it also. I don't think they necessarily are as in tune to how much of a struggle it can be, but like there are people everywhere who feel so disconnected. And it's hard to feel connected to people when you're doing scripted interactions, like that's very like you feel like okay, they like me, but if I go off script, then they won't, you know? And just like you mentioned with the overthinking it afterwards, like did I overshare? Did I da da da? Like that makes it so much harder the next time to engage, because you start overthinking what did that person think of me, or do they left me feeling like I'm something's wrong with me. And the fact that social conventions can do that so easily, like make people feel like they failed their social exam, like it's just kind of messed up. Like, whereas I think it more naturally, like if you watch like kids, like who get together and hang out like before they get too much of a smartphone and social media influence, but like the way they do, they just walk up and they'll be like, I like to play with this. Let's play with this. And the other person might be like, cool. Or the other person like, no, I don't want to play with this. I want to play with this. And then they might go play with other people. But like, at least they're not wasting their time, like that's a whole other separate issue, honestly, because I always think about that too when people are polite to me or, that don't really like me that much. And it's okay. I'm not for everyone. I am not that kind of flavor. There are very few people who really like this flavor. But it's okay. Like I don't have a problem with that. There's a lot of flavors I don't like either. But because of the whole politeness thing that we do, we waste so much time on people that aren't our flavor and we're not theirs. And like for me, it's hard for me to read when somebody really does like me or when somebody's tolerating me. And sometimes it gets really frustrating because there have been times, well, maybe not frustrating, but hurtful, where I've thought people really liked me and I really liked them. And then I found out they were tolerating me. And then that's a whole other level of like yucky feeling. And I can like a person and they don't need to like me. That's fine. Like there are people like that in my life that I've liked so much and I know they just didn't like me that much, but it didn't bother me. But when I think that they do and they don't, it's like, why do we do all this stupid polite stuff to just basically, it's like so dishonest. Like if you don't want to hang out with me, if you don't want to talk to me, then don't start a conversation or don't go there. Like don't waste my time. Just like the little kids on the playground. If we're not into playing the same thing, we don't want to talk about the same stuff, let's just not engage. Like we all need that emotional energy for other things so that we can invest it in the people that are the right flavor, that we do want to spend time with, and that don't make us feel awkward and stupid.